5 simple ways to start a conversation that matters. Have you ever been in a room full of people and still felt alone? You smile. You nod. Maybe someone asks how you're doing, and you give the usual answer, I'm fine. But deep down, there's a quiet ache. Not because you don't have anyone around, but because the conversations don't feel real anymore. You miss those talks that used to light up your spirit, the ones that lasted for hours and left you feeling understood, not just heard. And if you've ever felt that way, you're not alone. As we get older, many of us realize that surface-level chit-chat just isn't enough anymore. We crave connection, real, soul-deep connection. But here's the thing, meaningful conversations don't always happen by accident. Sometimes, we have to take the first step. Sometimes, we have to start the conversation that matters. That might sound a little intimidating. After all, how do you even begin? What do you say that doesn't feel awkward or too personal too soon? Don't worry. That's exactly what we're going to talk about today. Because there are small, simple ways, things you can do today, that can open the door to conversations that actually matter. Not only do these conversations help us feel more connected, but they can also bring healing, joy, and purpose into our lives again. So let's start right where most conversations do, with the first words. Sometimes, the most powerful way to begin isn't with a question at all, it's with presence. You might not realize it, but the way you show up can set the entire tone for what follows. Imagine sitting with a friend at a coffee shop. They're talking about something small, maybe what they watched last night or how their garden's doing. But you're really listening. Not halfway. Not with one eye on your phone or one foot out the door. You're there. With them. That kind of presence is rare. And when someone feels truly seen, even in the smallest moment, they start to open up, slowly, gently, like a flower turning toward the sun. So the first way to start a conversation that matters is to be fully present. Let go of distractions. Look someone in the eyes. Listen like they matter, because they do. And you'll be surprised how even the simplest "how are you" really can lead to something much deeper when it comes from a place of presence. But what if you don't know how to get past the surface? What if every conversation ends with "I'm good, thanks" and never really goes anywhere? Here's something I've found incredibly helpful: share something real first. It doesn't have to be dramatic or heavy. It just has to be honest. For example, instead of saying, "How's your day?" you could say, "I've been feeling a bit off today, like my heart's full, but I'm not sure with what." Have you ever had days like that? It's amazing how giving someone a glimpse of your own humanity can create the space for them to do the same. It's not about oversharing or turning every chat into a therapy session. It's about giving permission, through your own openness, for the other person to go a little deeper too. So next time you want to start a meaningful conversation, try sharing something small and honest about yourself. Not to make it about you, but to invite connection. Something like, "I saw a photo of my old friend today, and it made me think about how quickly time moves." Ever get caught in those moments where the past just shows up out of nowhere? You might be surprised how often someone will respond with, "Yes. I know exactly what you mean." And just like that, the conversation has changed. It's no longer about the weather or what was on TV. It's about life, the kind of talk that stays with you long after it's over. Now, some people might say, "But I don't want to make things awkward. What if the other person doesn't respond the way I hope?" Here's what I'll say to that: the goal isn't always to have a perfect conversation. It's to create a moment of realness. And even if the other person doesn't go deep right away, you've planted a seed. You've shown them it's safe to be real with you. And that matters more than you think. The truth is, after 60, many of us are carrying stories that haven't been told in years. Grief. Triumph. Regret. Joy. A lifetime of emotion, locked behind "I'm fine." But with just a little warmth, a little courage, and a little intention, we can create the kind of spaces where those stories finally feel welcome again. And that's the power of starting a conversation that matters. So far, we've talked about two very simple, very human ways to do that, showing up fully present and going first with honesty. But we're just getting started. You know, there's something beautiful that happens when we stop trying to impress and start trying to connect. We begin to feel less alone. We begin to remember that every person, even the quiet ones, carries a universe inside them. And all it takes to unlock it is the right kind of question. That brings me to another powerful way to begin a meaningful conversation. Ask questions that invite a story, not just a fact. Think about how often we ask things like, "How are you?" or "What did you do today?" They're polite, sure. But they don't always open the door to something deeper. Most of the time, they lead to short answers, quick nods, and then the conversation moves on. But imagine instead asking someone, "What's something that made you smile recently?" or "If you could relive one day from your past, which one would it be, and why?" Suddenly, you're not asking for information. You're asking for feeling, for memory, for heart. I remember sitting with a friend from church one Sunday, both of us sipping lukewarm coffee in paper cups. I asked him, "When in your life did you feel the most free?" He looked at me, blinked twice, then smiled, as if someone had just handed him an old photograph. And for the next 15 minutes, he told me about a road trip he took in 1974, just him and a motorcycle, no plan, just freedom. He hadn't talked about it in decades. But there it was, bubbling back to life like it had just happened yesterday. That's what the right question can do. It brings the past back in full color. It opens the heart. It reminds people that their stories still matter, because they do. And you don't have to be clever or poetic. Just curious. Just kind. Now, there's something else that might surprise you. Sometimes, the most meaningful conversations don't begin with words at all. They begin with silence. I know, that sounds strange. We're talking about conversation, after all. But the truth is, silence can be powerful. Especially when it's not empty, but intentional. Let's say someone you care about is going through a tough time, maybe they've lost someone, or maybe they're just feeling tired in a way that words can't fix. Instead of trying to fill the silence with advice or noise, try simply being with them. Let the silence be a space, not a void. A space where they know they're not being pushed or rushed. A space where they feel safe enough to speak, if and when they're ready. I once sat on a porch swing with my neighbor, an older man who'd recently lost his wife. We rocked in silence for 10, maybe 15 minutes. Then he said, quietly, "You know, I still make her coffee in the morning. I forget she's gone." My heart cracked open in that moment. Not because I said something profound, I hadn't said anything at all. I just stayed. I just listened. So don't be afraid of silence. Sometimes, it's not what you say that matters. It's your presence, your patience, your willingness to sit in the quiet with someone until their heart is ready to speak. And here's one more thing I want to share, and it might just be the most important of all: don't wait. Don't wait for the perfect time. Don't wait for someone else to reach out. Don't wait until the conversation is convenient, or easy, or polished. Because the truth is, the most meaningful conversations often happen in the unplanned, unscripted moments. In the hallway after church. In the car on the way home from the doctor. In the grocery store aisle when you bump into an old friend and see something in their eyes that says, "Please ask me how I'm really doing." And when that moment comes, be brave. Reach out. You don't need fancy words. You just need a willing heart. A little courage. And maybe a hand to hold. Because here's something we often forget: connection isn't just something we want. It's something we need. Deep, nourishing conversations are part of what keep us healthy, emotionally, mentally, even physically. Studies show that loneliness can be as dangerous as smoking. But the good news is, we're never too old to connect. We're never too late to begin. And we don't need a crowd. Just one conversation that truly matters can change the whole course of a day, sometimes even a life. So if you're wondering whether you should reach out to that friend you haven't seen in a while, or ask your partner how they're really feeling, or sit down with your grandchild and say, Tell me something you love that I don't know about you yet. Do it. You might be opening the door to something deeper than you ever expected. And that's the beauty of it all. We don't need perfect timing or perfect words. We just need to show up. There's a quiet magic in choosing to show up. To be the one who leans in, who asks, who listens, not just with ears, but with heart. And the truth is, the more we practice this, the more natural it becomes. The walls start to fall, not only around others, but around ourselves, too. Because something happens when you consistently start conversations that matter. You begin to matter more to the people around you. Not in a loud or showy way, but in that deep, trusted, I feel safe with you kind of way. And maybe that's what we're all craving, especially after 60, not more noise, but more meaning. Not more people, but more realness. So here's one last way to bring that realness into your conversations. Speak from gratitude. It might sound simple, but it's one of the most powerful things you can do. When you start a conversation by appreciating someone, genuinely, something inside them softens. It's like opening a window in a stuffy room. Suddenly, the air feels lighter, warmer, safer. You don't have to make a big speech. Just say something like, I've always admired how patient you are, it's something I've been thinking about lately. Or, you have this way of making people feel seen, and I wanted you to know I notice it. These words don't just start a conversation. They create a foundation. One of trust, of warmth, of shared humanity. And often, the person on the receiving end will feel moved to share something they wouldn't have otherwise. A story. A memory. A struggle. A dream. Gratitude opens the door to authenticity. And authenticity is where all meaningful connection begins. And maybe you're thinking, but what if I don't have someone to talk to like that right now? Then start with yourself. Sometimes, the first conversation that matters is the one you have inside. The one where you stop judging how quiet things have gotten. Where you forgive yourself for the distance that grew between you and someone you once cared about. Where you say, I still want connection, and I'm not too late. Because you're not. You're not too old to be deeply seen. Not too far gone to rebuild a friendship. Not too quiet to be heard. And you don't have to wait for someone else to knock on your door. You can be the one who knocks. Maybe it's a call to an old friend you haven't spoken to in years. Maybe it's reaching out to that neighbor who always seems lonely. Maybe it's looking into your partner's eyes and asking, with genuine tenderness, what's been on your heart lately? These conversations may not be long. They may not be perfect. But they will be real. And that's what matters. And when you begin having more of these talks, the kind that leave you feeling more human, not less, something inside you changes. The world doesn't feel so distant. People don't feel so separate. You remember that you belong. You always have. Sometimes we just need to be reminded, through a moment of connection, that we are still very much alive. That we still have something to offer. That even in the quietest seasons of life, our voices still carry weight, still hold value. So take a breath. Think of one person, just one, you'd like to connect with more deeply. And take that first step. Start with presence. Go first with honesty. Ask questions that invite stories. Allow silence to speak when words can't. And speak from gratitude, always. These aren't tricks. They're not hacks. They're human truths, gentle habits that make space for love to enter the room. And you're more than capable of this. Not because you've read all the books or mastered all the techniques, but because you've lived. You've seen what matters. And now, you can choose to make space for it, one conversation at a time. If this message spoke to you, if it reminded you of someone you want to reach out to, I'd love to hear about it in the comments. What conversation are you ready to start? If you found this video helpful, give it a like, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel. We're building a space here for real talk, real people, and real growth at every age. And remember, it's never too late to connect. It's never too late to be heard. And it's never too late to start a conversation that truly matters. Here's to living with open hearts, one word at a time.